Well, let's return to Iran now with the Australian's foreign editor, Greg Sheridan. Greg, thanks so much for being with us tonight. I spoke at the top of the show about the thousands of protesters now who have been killed during this violent crackdown by Iran's security forces. This is now one of the biggest challenges to the regime since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Do you see this as possibly the beginning of the end for Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and his brutal regime?
Well, Carolyn, great to be with you. Look, I think the signs are not great, just the latest signs. This, I think, has been the biggest challenge to the Islamo-Stalinist regime of the mullahs since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, but the regime has held together. You haven't seen any defections from within the regime. You haven't seen any visible disunity from the security forces, and the security forces have shown a willingness to kill thousands and thousands and thousands of Iranian civilians intentionally, because they're protesting against a dictatorship. Now, the sad truth is dictatorships often fall not because they're too rough, but when they start to liberalise. That was what happened in the Soviet Union. In a way, that's what happened to the Shah in Iran. It's fascinating that Donald Trump is getting involved in this on the grounds of human rights. I mean, this is Donald Trump, the neoconservative. This is Donald Trump, the liberal internationalist. This is Donald Trump we haven't seen before. It's very welcome that he's supporting the demonstrators. I salute their magnificent courage, and I think every civilised human being in the world supports the Iranian demonstrators. Our government quite rightly said that it does. But, you know, I very much hope I'm wrong here, but I think the regime looks as though it's going to hold together.
Oh, look, I hope you're wrong as well. You talk about US President Donald Trump, and I think he's made the strongest hints in the past 24 hours that he could take military action here. He posted online, help is on its way. He hasn't ruled out airstrikes when asked about this by reporters. Do you think, though, that another US strike on Iran is likely to happen at this point?
Look, Carolyn, I would say it's genuinely impossible to predict. So first of all, I mean, I welcome Trump's intervention in the sense that he is supporting the demonstrators. So he's on the side of human decency, basic human decencies. So good on the president for that. Some of his recent actions have been extremely effective in Venezuela, in Gaza, and in the strike on Iran's military facilities. But it's very difficult to see how an American military strike from the air could materially help the demonstrators. Iran doesn't look as though it's just on the brink of collapse and one more push will shove it over the edge. I suppose it's conceivable that they could try to decapitate the regime, but that, you know, the system seems to be pretty solid. If it lost a leader or a number of leaders, they would quickly be replaced. The other thing about Trump's rhetoric, I mean, as I say, the support for the demonstrators is salutary and welcome. But if you say to people, keep demonstrating, help is on its way, that does place you under a big moral obligation to give them some help. I mean, one of the long-term criticisms of liberal interventionism has been that you get people to sacrifice their lives in a good cause on the promise of help that never quite arrives. And I just don't see, I don't say this as a criticism of Trump or anything, but I just don't see what US military action could advance the situation of the protesters or lead to regime collapse in Iran. But Trump has said so much about it in the last couple of days, it'll look very strange if he doesn't do something. But there are non-military measures open to him, increasing sanctions or perhaps cyber interference with the state security forces of Iran, something like that.
Yeah, maybe that is more plausible, I suppose. But yeah, he says he's cancelled negotiations that had been in the works with Iran. So if he doesn't do something at this stage, I think he would look a bit foolish after all the tough talk. Look, let's move on now to Kevin Rudd's sudden resignation as ambassador to the US. Now, you've actually written in defence of Rudd today in The Australian, arguing that Rudd did a good job as ambassador, notwithstanding the troubles caused by his previous silly remarks that were personally critical of Donald Trump. And you say his departure will seriously weaken the Albanese government, especially on China policy. I mean, explain that, Greg. Why do you defend Rudd today?
Well, Rudd's a mixed grill. Like most people, there's good and bad in Rudd. But Rudd has always been very, very good on China. And I've read his book on Xi Jinping. I wonder how many members of the federal cabinet have done so. And it's the best thing on current Chinese leadership. And he makes the case that Xi Jinping is an ideologue motivated by Marxist-Leninist ideology and a desire to increase the power of the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese state. Well, you don't hear any of that language from the Albanese government. I mean, I wrote today that the Albanese government strategically has a marshmallow brain. Tactically, it has all the swiftness of a stale blancmange, and it has the grip of a kitten with a Valium habit. Well, Rudd compared to those is Iron Man, Superman, Captain America, all rolled into one. Now, the Albanese government can't afford to lose its one hardhead on China policy. At the same time, Andrew Shearer is departing as the Director of the Office of National Intelligence. It's greatly the Albanese government's credit that it kept Shearer in place after it came into office. And now he's going to Tokyo as ambassador. That's a big post, so they're treating him honourably. But what you've got with the departure of Rudd and the departure of Shearer is the departure of the two most best informed, toughest minded thinkers on China in the Australian national security establishment. Now, with our marshmallow government, with its utterly anemic defence budget, its inability to take any action, so how is it that Rudd's resignation was announced and there was no replacement ready to go? You don't want to leave this post vacant, the most important post in our diplomatic service. Last year, 2024, they announced that they're no longer having the head of ASIO and the head of ACIS as routine members of the National Security Committee of the Cabinet, whereas they had been for a long time before that. So I think this is a substantial weakening of the Albanese government, which is already very, very weak in national security. Now, a lot of other things Rudd did and said I'd disagree with strongly and all that, but I think he's a big loss. A weak government is losing its one bit of strength.
Well, it should be a concern for all of us. Greg Sheridan, thank you so much for your time and your insights tonight.